So guys, we did it. The Switch 2 is almost upon us now, except for the fact that half of us aren't even able to pre-order it, and the thing is just too fucking expensive, so what's the deal? But before we truly get into that, I just want to take this week's upload to kind of just break down what was announced for the Switch 2, and also just kind of go over what's bad and some criticisms I have with the console sometime at the end of the video. So yeah, I'll probably just leave chapters if you just want to jump around. So despite the console looking almost exactly like its predecessor, the Switch 2 has a lot going for it this time around, with a better processor, a better graphics card, supposedly better controllers, which, you know, the jury's still out on that one. But they've completely redesigned, supposedly, the system from the ground up. So they've tweaked some things, adjusted some things, and whatever wasn't broken, they just left it the same. One of the bigger issues the Switch had was just how crappy the Joy-Cons really were, especially with the whole stick drift issue that was going on with them. In an interview that they released just after the announcement, they talk about what they did to change or enhance the Joy-Cons, and they said, "We redesigned everything from scratch for Joy-Con 2. The controllers for this system, compared to the Joy-Con controllers for the Switch 1, the control sticks are larger and more durable, with smoother movement. We've also made Joy-Con 2 bigger to match the larger console. But if we simply stretch Switch System's Joy-Con vertically, they'd end up being difficult to hold, as your fingers wouldn't be able to reach the L and R buttons, and they wouldn't fit the shape of your palms. That's why we lengthened the L and R buttons, rounded off the bottom corners, and experimented with various placements of the control sticks and buttons, right down to the millimeter or less, to arrive at the shape and layout we have now." One of the more recent controversies that's going on with the Switch 2 is that they're not using Hall effect control sticks for the console. They actually haven't revealed what they're going to be using compared to what they used for the Switch 1, and as we know how much of a disaster that was, I mean, I'm at a point where I'm not even using the Joy-Cons on my Switch. I'm sticking with my Pro Controller. I don't even know where my Joy-Cons are at this point. But I do hope that they end up fixing the whole stick drift issue with the new Joy-Cons. It looks pretty promising, I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, even if like the stick itself is a lot bigger, I'm sure that they've kind of just fixed up the actual mechanism that makes that control stick work. But, you know, we'll never know until we actually get the console. Moving on, though, we're going to talk a bit about its processor. Now, when you go into the Switch 2's, like, actual tech specs page on the Nintendo website, when you go down to the CPU, GPU section, it only says custom processor made by NVIDIA. Now, what this could possibly be, I'm not entirely sure, but a lot of people have been speculating that it's on the same level as the RTX 30 series. On NVIDIA's website, they talk about how the Switch 2 is now using an NVIDIA GPU that has dedicated RT cores, or ray tracing cores, and tensor cores that are supposedly supposed to provide stunning visuals and now AI-driven enhancements. Now, this does not mean the Switch 2 is going to be using AI-generated content, but rather they're going to be using AI to help make the Switch games run and maybe even look better. But now this also means we officially get 4K support in docked mode. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the Switch 2 is going to be able to run 4K resolution at 60 frames a second. That is a huge leap from the Switch 1's capabilities, where they could only run up to 1080p. Now in handheld mode, there's going to be an insane improvement from the Switch 1 over to the Switch 2. Because on the Switch 1, you could only run games natively at 720p thanks to its little 6-inch LCD screen. But now, since they've made the console even bigger, as a result they had to make the screen bigger too. So now, not only are you going to be able to enjoy your games at a better resolution, but it's going to go up from 720 to 1080p. That's even more than the Steam Deck can handle. And just to show you all what exactly I mean, here's some gameplay on my Steam Deck. And as you can see, it runs pretty smoothly. I don't know if you can really tell from there, but at the top left corner of the screen, I have the little like performance tracker turned on, and it's running at just about a consistent 40 to 55 frames a second. Now, for some reason this game is capped at 60 frames a second, but since this is the OLED model can actually go up 90 Hz, so it can run about 90 frames per second per title. So it'll look smooth, but it's not going to be the same compared to the Switch, even though it is using an LCD screen and this is OLED. The Switch 2, however, is going to be able to run 1080p at 120 frames a second. That is double what the Switch 1 can do. And that is almost double what the Steam Deck can do. So imagine how well the games are going to look and how well they're going to run just with this new screen upgrade. Now, like I said, it's not OLED, but it is definitely an improvement to what we had before. Now, because of the screen size it has on the Steam Deck, it's using a very wonky resolution of 1280 by 800 pixels to be able to render this image on screen, which is typically not seen in, your regular like consoles or like your TVs and such, because usually you just see like 720 to 1080 to 1440 to 2160. For some reason on the Steam Deck, they decided to go with 1280 by 800 pixels, which is a bit smaller than you would think in terms of resolution than your typical Switch 2 and your typical TV or monitor resolution, which is 1920 by 1080 if you're not running 4K. So just keep that in mind. This resolution on the Steam Deck is a lot smaller, and therefore the quality of the game is going to look much different compared to how it's going to look on the Switch 2. Now, another immense problem the Switch had was the eShop. Now, when the console first came out, it was alright, mainly because there weren't too many games that were out at this point, and not a lot of developers had ported or made games for it on release. But now, the eShop's library has grown exponentially in these last 8 years at this point. So obviously, there's going to be a lot of processing issues. And just to show you exactly what I mean, we're going to open up the eShop right now, and you're going to see exactly what the problem is. Dude, okay, that was not something I anticipated would happen, but that's exactly the point I'm trying to make right now, okay? That's literally the point I'm trying to make right now. Yeah, not only can it be, really slow when you're trying to navigate it for a long time, but it's excruciatingly unstable, okay? I went down to the coming soon section, and it crashed. This isn't even something I edited together, dude. This is the raw recording of me going to the coming soon section of the Nintendo eShop, and it fucking crashed. Thankfully, though, with the Nintendo Switch 2, it looks a lot more streamlined to be on the eShop. Because not only does it now give you recommendations on games you might want to buy next, but the UI actually looks cleaner and even more responsive than the Switch ones, okay? In the recording, you probably saw how quick the stuff was loading in. The Switch 2 looks significantly better. And instead of having that orange color to it, they finally streamlined the eShop's color to red to kind of just fit with the whole Switch ecosystem. We also now have a first look at what the home menu for the Nintendo Switch 2 is gonna look like. Alright, you guys ready for this? Alright, I need a good drum roll, alright? I need a really good drum roll, alright? just like something really nice. We gotta build up to this. It's gonna look fantastic. It's the same fucking thing. Okay, this is fine. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's take a closer look and see what's different about this UI now. So it pretty much looks kind of the same. I mean, there's a bit more like curve in the corners of like each game icon. And, you know, the bottom looks the same. There's like a couple new icons in there. And one that looks like it's just been redesigned. The green one that looks like a piece of paper kind of just looks like an updated like news feed icon. The eShop icon is red. It kind of was just what we just went over. Right next to that, you know, there's the album. And then after that, it looks like it might either be the game sharing feature now. That's getting its own icon, or it could just be like a downloads menu thing. And then obviously we have the controllers menu, and then the virtual game card menu, settings, and then power. I mean, it looks better. It looks nicer, I guess, cleaner. You know, I don't really have too many complaints about it. And oh shit, hang on, I gotta take this. Yeah? What? No, wait. No, absolutely. Do I have to? Fine. Fuck! Alright. I guess we gotta talk about it. Okay. Just when we thought we would finally be done with having mentally ill kids on voice chat, Nintendo came back and was like, hey guys, here's some voice chat for you. How game chat is supposedly supposed to work is it's kind of just supposed to be like Xbox and PlayStation parties, and you know, maybe even like your typical Discord VC, and you just be able to just talk with your friends. I mean, the Switch now has a built-in mic onto it that pretty much just allows you to participate in these party chats. You can also screen share, and you can also... Yeah, no, actually, I think it's just screen sharing that's everything that... What the fuck? Package from Nintendo. What's this? It's a camera. Here, I need you to sign here. Alright, Nintendo. I get it. Okay, first you wanted us to cope that we were going to inevitably deal with mentally ill children online through the game chat feature. And now you're giving us a camera so that we can use with said game chat feature. I don't know how to feel about this. I don't know why anyone would want a fucking camera for the Switch 2. But, you know, it's there. If you want it, it's there. Alright? Just be sure to unplug it between every use, you know? So yeah, basically to sum up this section, and just to add one little detail that I forgot to mention up to this point, but on the right Joy-Con, a button that a lot of people speculated would be a fish button that does absolutely nothing. Well, yeah, it turns out it actually does something, you know? It's the C button, and it pretty much just opens up the chat menu, and it allows you just start a chat with your friends or with a random stranger or whoever. So, you know, it's a neat feature to have. I'm sure at some point Nintendo could consider adding Discord support to it, which would be very nice. But yeah. They have a trial period going on right now. It's going to be for about a year or maybe about 6 months. That's set to end sometime in 2026, so people can go on ahead and try it and see for themselves whether they like it or not. But if you don't, I mean, Discord's right there. You might as well just go do that. You remember in the first look trailer that we got that they teased a new Mario Kart? Well, that's going to be the launch title for this console, as they're introducing Mario Kart World into the mix. Now, instead of there just being 8 or 12 racers per match, they've pretty much increased that cap to 24. And not only that, but they made the entire game open world. Not to mention, the Grand Prix mode in previous Mario Karts has been completely revamped to fit the new format. Now you have to actually drive to the next map to continue your race. And then they introduced something completely new, which is the Knockout Tour. And we'll get into that in a bit. But first, in this footage I'm showing you, you may have noticed something a little bit different. Yeah, the characters are getting costumed now. It's a really cool addition to see, and from the gameplay they showed at the Nintendo Treehouse, it's looking like it's gonna be unlocked or maybe obtained through new item boxes that they're spreading throughout the maps that look like little food bags or like to-go bags that you would see at like McDonald's or some shit. And now you're gonna actually get to see different variants of each racers instead of just having your typical stock color selector thing. As for the characters in this game, from the looks of it, it appears that you won't be able to find characters like the Inkling Girl or the Inkling Boy or even Link or any Animal Crossing characters in this game. It seems like they're either cutting that from Mario Kart entirely or they're just going to include them as DLC, kind of like how they introduced Link and the Villager in like Mario Kart 8 when it was DLC on the Wii U. So the jury's still out on that one, but they added some very interesting new characters, like the fucking Moo Moo Meadows cow. Yes, the Moo Moo Meadows cow from the Wii is going to be a playable character in this game. I don't know who at Nintendo thought that adding the fucking cow, making the cow be able to drive was a good idea, but I'm all here for it, bro. I am all for it. Okay, you're gonna see me tearing up Mario's circuit as the fucking Moo Moo Meadows cow. So one last thing before we move on to the criticisms I have with this console, and it's the last new mode. Well, there's two technically, but you know, it's kind of self-explanatory, but Knockout Tour in Mario Kart World is basically Mario Kart Battle Royale. Okay, you gotta race through like a certain amount of like maps, I'm assuming, and there are checkpoints at the end of each one, and you have to be at a certain placement to be able to progress into the race. So once you are essentially eliminated, I mean, you're out, basically. Like if the requirement is you're like 12th or above and you don't make it to 12th place, you're out. But, you know, that's pretty much what the goal is. It's a really nice concept. I really like this mode, and it's going to be very interesting to get into it. So, this is one of the things I'm very much excited for. And then the other mode that they're adding is Free Roam, which pretty much just allows you to go explore the world at your discretion. Like, you can pretty much just go anywhere, see the maps, try and find some new routes to go through to get to the next race. Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to Mario Kart World. Now, one of the big things that was taken out of Mario Kart World was the kart customization menu, which was a big part in both Mario Kart 7 and Mario Kart 8. And as sad as I am to see that go, I'm actually kind of glad that they're going to scrap that, and they're going to just bring back preset karts and shit. Because, as you know, in Mario Kart 8, people just went with the most broken fucking setup in that game, and they just went with it. Like, it wouldn't even matter if you just fucking, like, wanted to mess around with the card combinations and shit. No, they just went with the, like, cyan roller wheels, the fucking Bitty Bug cart, and the Cloud Glider. Or even, like, the Yoshi motorcycle with the roller wheels. And that would be it. Like, that's all you would see in online lobbies, I kid you not. So I'm kind of glad to see that the original, like, kart setup is coming back from the Wii. And, you know, as much as it's sad as it is to see that go, I mean, what more could you want? Now, this is going to be the last thing I say about Mario Kart World, but next week they're going to be having a Nintendo Direct specifically for this game, just to talk more in detail about what's coming, what's new, and what they'll be adding to the game as, you know, more value to it. this is gonna tie into my criticisms for this console, but the MSRP for this game is... yeah, it's not that good.
You need to leave.
What? We're flying to Philadelphia. Oh, hell no! That's hell no!
Yeah, unfortunately, none of this here is going to be very cheap.
Sorry, Link. I can't give credit. Come back when you're a little, richer.
So the base console for the Switch 2 is going to be $450, which, you know, in my opinion, it was to be expected that the Switch, or any Nintendo console for that matter, was going to inevitably hit that price point. And I'm not upset about it. I mean, you clearly saw all the features that this console is going to bring. But a lot of people don't feel the same way about it, which is completely understandable. This is in no way trying to defend the fact that Nintendo is taking advantage of a very booming and very inflated economy, let's put it like that.
Tariffs. My favorite word, tariff. Which of course is short for terrific idea.
So here's a big criticism I have with this console. Let's start off with one of the other launch titles that are coming to the Switch 2, the Welcome Tour. Now, this may seem like your typical tutorial tech demo game, but you know, there's a bit of a problem there. It's $10. You have to pay $10 to play a game that mostly consists of tech demos. I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. Okay? Why should people have to pay for a tutorial? That is the stupidest shit I have ever seen, bruh. Not even my $600 Steam Deck made me pay for the fucking game that shows you what it does. You know, the game that came with every Steam Deck imaginable, Aperture Desk Job, the one you see on screen right now. Yeah, I didn't pay anything for that, and it pretty much was the exact same thing as what the fucking Welcome Tour for the Switch 2 is supposed to do. Okay? This introduced me to all the shit that's inside the Steam Deck, from the trackpad to the control sticks to the buttons, to the fucking tilt and gyroscope. It was fucking insane, dude. And you're going to charge people $10 just to learn what the Switch 2 does. I don't know, man. It just looks greedy as shit to be charging $10 for something that should be free. I mean, if I paid $600 for the OLED model of the Steam Deck, I'm going to want that to be free too. If fucking Valve could do it, Nintendo can do it too. And there's another big problem that's going on with the Switch 2, and it has to do with the MSRP of Mario Kart World. Now, a lot of people have a lot of complaints about Mario Kart World being $80 MSRP. You know, and I am kind of one of those people, because, you know, $80 for a game is already very, very expensive. Okay, I don't want to have to give out a lot of money for one single game, let alone $80. Games were already at a really good price when they were at $60 consistently. But now we're at a point where games are going up from $60 to $70, and now from $70 to $80. And you know what this is probably going to do? GTA 6 is most likely going to have a $100 MSRP. Which is crazy to think about. And I mean, sure, the new Donkey Kong game that was announced, Donkey Kong Bonanza, is going to have a $70 MSRP. So the question is, why couldn't Nintendo do the same thing with Mario Kart World? And it really just adds on to this whole subject of what exactly are they going to be putting in the game? Because obviously, you know, Mario Kart World isn't just going to be this whole base game the entire time, right? They're going to be introducing DLC, they're going to be introducing updates, maybe new characters, maybe new cars, maybe new maps. How much are we as the consumer going to get in value by paying $80 for this game? Will we have free updates for a certain amount of time? How long will those free updates be? There's a lot of questions that goes into this. And if I'm being completely honest with you, it's a bit of a gamble. I mean, take a look at previous Mario Kart entries. more specifically Mario Kart 8. That game came out back in the Wii U era, and then it got re-released on the Switch. But then after a while, after the Wii U finished giving it DLC, 4 new cups, a few new characters, and it moved on to the Switch, we got a whole new set of about 16 cups and several new characters that we could play as in that game. So of course, Mario Kart World isn't just going to be this base game that we're seeing right now. Eventually, later on, there's probably going to be a ton of content that's going to be added to this game. So I think it should be up to you as the consumer to decide whether or not the $80 is going to be a worthwhile investment if you want to get this game. And I know it sucks, and I know that this is a very hard pill to swallow for a lot of us, but this is just how Nintendo wants to operate going forward. And as bad as of a precedent that it sets, it's really the only way we have to get adjusted to gaming as our hobby. Now, one last thing I'd like to go over is this misconception about how game cards are going to be working from now on. And it really just stems from this support article on Nintendo's website, talking about how some game cards are only going to be giving like little download codes in the cartridge itself to the full game. And I think a lot of people are very mistaken about what this entails. Now, one of the major concerns that a lot of people have had with this new key card system is whether or not they're going to be able to preserve their physical games, which I can understand you'd be like very concerned over that. But one of the big things is that these cartridges can't hold that many games in them, like huge games for that matter. The purpose of the key card system, from what I've seen, is so that you could get these big games, like for example Cyberpunk, which is typically like a 60 gig game, instead of having a game compressed to that extent on a little cartridge, they would prefer that you download it so that you don't have any issues when trying to open the game. Now, this will only likely apply to games that are insanely huge, okay? Games that you definitely need an internet connection to download. I am sure that for a lot of first-party titles that are coming to the Switch 2, this is not going to be the case, and you will actually have the physical game in your hand. So I think a lot of people are freaking out over this, or maybe just overreacting about this. The game key card system is mainly just for huge games that aren't able to fit in the cartridge itself. And I'm hoping that this remains to be the case. I would love to have some game preservation for physical copies, but I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be, especially when we're talking about first-party content. Now, this is my last criticism for the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, in the Direct, they talked about how the Switch is now going to have 256 gigs of internal storage, just starting off with the console. But then, they went and talked about these new microSD cards that only work on the Nintendo Switch 2. That's right, the SanDisk microSD Express cards are the only thing that's going to allow you to expand the amount of storage you have in your system. This is really, really bad, okay? Because your typical microSDs that you would find on Amazon, specifically the XC model microSDs, those were already pretty expensive. This, in particular, is going to shoot everything through the fucking roof, dude. I kid you not. When I first started looking for these specific microSDs, not the ones for the Switch 2, but the ones that worked the best for the Switch 1, it was not only expensive, but a lot of the time, you could barely find any in stock. This would be as bad, if not worse, than the PlayStation 2 memory card crisis. And for those of you who are about as old, if not older than I am, will remember that there was a whole crisis back in the 2000s about how the PS2 was running out of memory cards. Okay? This is a horrible, horrible concept, and I should just be able to use the microSD card that works on my Switch on the new hardware. there is absolutely no reason why there should be any exclusivity for this new generation of microSD card. Okay, microSD card Express is going to be sold out and scalped in seconds. Alright, now, this video has been going on for way too long, so here's what I'm gonna do since a lot of us have the attention span of a fucking walnut. I'm going to give myself 1 minute to list out as many fucking announcements as I can from the Switch 2 Direct, and then I'm gonna leave with my final thoughts and call it there, alright? Here we go. We got a new teaser for the brand new Kirby's Air Ride game that's coming to the Switch 2. Nintendo showed off upgrade packs for Mario Party, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Nintendo showed off more updates to the Metroid Prime 4 game, including how it's also going to release as a Nintendo Switch 2 Edition version that features better frame rates and graphics. Pokemon Legends ZA is also getting a Nintendo Switch 2 edition with better frame rates and better graphics. Hopefully the game doesn't look like shit anymore. Nintendo announced a new game called Dragon Drive that features people in wheelchairs playing basketball. A new Hyrule Warriors game called Age of Imprisonment is coming to the Switch 2. The Switch 2 is also getting a brand new Pro controller that is going to be priced the exact same way as the original. Now the only question is the first controller going to be compatible with the new hardware? And that's all the time we got. So now on to my final thoughts. Overall, I think this announcement of the new console was so horribly timed, okay? We are currently, in the US at least, at a point where we don't even know how much we're going to be paying for the console. Because as of right now, Nintendo has delayed news of pre-orders, or rather just the pre-orders themselves, because they don't know how much they're going to be charging people in North America for this new console. And it's disappointing to see, just because of how, you know, the world is just being treated at the moment, thanks to our lousy government. I'm sorry. Try to stay away I try to stay away from politics as much as possible now, but unfortunately, when, you know, things start to cross paths, it's kind of hard to do that. But, you know, this is just such awful timing, and it just would have been better if we weren't in deep shit with all these tariffs and whatnot. But I think overall, though, despite everything, I think this console is going to be fairly successful. Hopefully, it breaks this whole sequel curse that Nintendo has been having, from like the Wii to the Wii U, or maybe even the DS to the 3DS. It seems like they've been in a whole stump with that recently, especially considering the Wii U, how bad that did. But overall, I do think this console is going to do well, and I am very much looking forward to it releasing. Hell, I even enrolled myself in their pre-order program to see if I could even get the console without having to get scalped. So that June 5th release date is starting to look sweeter by the second. And I do hope that myself and many of my friends who are trying to get the new console are able to get it without having to deal with a bunch of filthy scalpers. Now, with Nintendo's new policy on their website, which is where they are recommending people to go and pre-order the Switch now, they are hoping to eliminate most, if not all, scalpers thanks to their 3 requirements. With those 3 requirements being: 1, you have to have been the one who purchased any Nintendo Switch Online membership. 2, you must have had any paid Nintendo Switch Online membership for a minimum of 12 months. And 3, you must have opted in to share gameplay data and have at least 50 hours of total gameplay on your account. So if you don't have that, you're pretty much, you know, shit out of luck. You're not going to be able to pre-order that console when it is supposedly going to go up in May. Now that's still put in question because, like I said, as of right now, pre-orders are still paused. I mean, it is April 9th as I'm recording this, and I don't know how long it'll be until we get some solid, concrete news on when these pre-orders are supposed to open up. Now, if you were to ask me, Prez, which version should I go for? If you want to avoid paying $80 for Mario Kart, I think you will do just fine getting the Mario Kart World bundle, which is just $500 because you're just paying $450 for the base console itself, and then you're paying an extra $50 just to get the game. Now mind you, you won't be getting the game physically, it's going to be a digital download, but hey, it beats having to pay $80 for that game. But take it with a grain of salt. I'm not entirely sure if prices are going to remain the same or if they're going to bump anything up as a result of these oncoming tariffs, which also have been paused today. So everything is just uncharted territory at this point. I am excited. I do hope I am able to get that console when it releases. But if not, then I'll just have to tackle a fucking scalper and show them who's who. But yeah, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this was a very long and agonizing video to edit with. I had to switch video editors mid-video just so I could get this video done, because I've been putting it off for too long and I want to just put it out there already. If you all enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.